ॐ त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव सर्वं मम देवदेव। श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तिसुदेशिकेन्द्रं द्वैपायनं सूत्रकृतं मुनीन्द्रं श्रीशङ्करं भाष्यकृतं यतीन्द्रं मद्देशिकञ्चापि नमामि विद्यै। ॐ नमो ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्मविद्या सम्प्रदायकर्तृभ्यो वंशऋषिभ्यो महद्भ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः। सर्वोपप्लवरहितप्रज्ञानगणः प्रत्यगर्तो ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि। ॐ प्रपन्नपारिजाताय तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। Pranams everyone. We are doing the 16th chapter, second sloka. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Ahimsa Satyamakkrodha Tyaga Shantirapayshunam Daya Bhuteshvalolupthvam Maardavam Hrihi Achaapalam. So in this chapter, Bhagavan is enumerating the Daivi-Asura-Sampad, Daiva-Asura-Sampad, Vibhaga Yoga. Basically, he is enumerating what are the qualities that a Daivi person or a Sattvic person should have, and what are the qualities that a Sattvic person should not have. All the Asuri Sampad. In this first three shlokas, Bhagavan is enumerating about 26 values that a Daivi Sampat person should have. And we had seen up to Dhaya Bhuteshu. Ahimsa Satyamakrodha Tyaga Shanti Rapaishunam Dhaya Bhuteshu. Until that we had seen last class. Dhaya Bhuteshu is basically the 16th value that Bhagavan was talking about. Dhaya, compassion. Dhaya is compassion towards all beings, including humans. And what we say, Dhaya is about when the person is undergoing a suffering, is undergoing a pain, then the natural emotion that has to be coming out from our mind should be Dhaya. It is not just the lip service, it is the emotion that should come out. And we saw how Dhaya is, or compassion is different from pity or empathy or sympathy. Compassion is the highest form where there is a genuine care and warmth. And we should not confuse this with attachment. Attachment is generally, it goes into empathy, where you start feeling the same sorrow that the other person starts feeling. Bhagavan does not want us to have that. Bhagavan wants us to have Daya. And this Daya should also be not confused with punishment. Punishing somebody for the mistake that they have committed, if we are in the position to punish, or if we are having this duty to punish, we have to proceed with that. Only thing, when we do that punishment, when we give that punishment, it should be not out of anger or a vengeance or hatred. It should be in line with whatever the mistake that has been committed. And we saw Daya is basically the fruits or the benefit of having Daya is basically, one, we will be able to develop forgiveness. Two, it will be able to help us develop ahimsa. And three, it is the basis for sannyasa. Ultimately, sannyasa is the last ashrama for every human being. And this gives us the basis for us to be able to move into that ashrama. And Daya is a Jnani Lakshana as well. So it becomes, any Jnani Lakshana becomes a sadhana for a Jignasu. So for any spiritual seeker, the qualifications or the spiritual sadhana is basically whatever are the qualities of a jnani. So in that sense, daya is very important. Daya can be inculcated through value meditation, we saw. And by inculcating daya, by bringing daya into our personality, a lot of those negative values or negative character will also leave us. Like for example, the dvesham, the feeling of vengeance, hatred, this revenge feeling, doing himsa to others, all those feeling will get out of our system. So the next value Bhagavan talks about is Alolupthvam. Alolupthvam. Alolupthvam is also an extension of a value that we had already seen. We had seen Damaha, sensory discipline. Alolupthvam is similar. Alolupthvam means Indriya Achaapalam, or basically a calmness in the sense organs. In other words, we can say freedom from any temptation. Freedom from temptation is Alolupthvam. When do we need to get this? Vishaya Sannidhav. When the sense organs, normally when we are alone, the sense organs will also be quiet. But when we are in the midst of something, then the sense organs will not be quiet. Here Bhagavan says, develop calmness in your sense organs when you are surrounded by things. When you are surrounded by Vishaya, at that point of time, the sense organs should remain calm. When the different padarthas exist, sense objects are called padartha in Sanskritam. So when Vishaya padarthas are around us, at that point of time, the indriyas will have to remain calm. So Vishaya Sannidhav Indriyana Avikriya, not doing any action. So for example, when a television is running or something is happening on the television, or when somebody is cooking some nice meal in the kitchen, or when there is some nice gossip happening around us, at that point of time, when there is an opportunity for the indriyas to actually enjoy, at that point of time, to keep the indriyas in a calm manner is called Alolupthvam. It is basically very difficult, but it just shows how much of our mind and senses are in our control. Whether we control them or whether they control us. So when things are happening around us, at that point of time, if we are able to keep our senses under control, then it is called as Alolupthvam. The problem is our sense organs can be compared to a kind of a child. When suppose if we have a 2-year-old child, generally speaking, the mother will train the child in such a way that every afternoon the lunch is fed, and then the child goes to sleep. But suppose on that day some new kids or toys have come into the house, and that the child starts playing with the toys, then the child refuses to eat the food. The child will refuse to go to sleep because the child's senses are all heightened and they want to stay awake. The mother, in spite of how much ever trying to put the child to sleep, will not be able to put the child to sleep. What happens afterwards? Afterwards the child turns cranky. Because it doesn't have its sleep, usual quota of sleep, then the child turns cranky. In the same way, our sense organs, when we are not able to keep them in check, when they are heightened, At that point of time, we are not able to control, and then after a while, they turn cranky as well. So this is very important to understand why the sense organs have to be kept in control. Now, there was a Shuka Munivar, Vyasacharya's son. He was a great jnani. And at that point of time, it is said that Vyasa actually sent Shuka Muni to he sent him to Raja Janaka, because Janaka was also a jnani. Janaka, basically Sita's father, he was a jnani. So he sent Shuka to Janaka so that Janaka can certify that Shuka is a jnani. So what Janaka did was, he gave Shuka actually a bowl, filled with brimming oil, and he asked Shuka Munivar to come around the city with that on top of his head. And typically when you go out in the city, there are so many sensual attractions. There are flowers, there are people singing, there is smell of cooking. So many things are there to attract or distract you. But at the end of the day, when Shuka came back, not a drop of oil was spilled. It only shows how much of control that Shuka Munivar or a jnani has on their sense organs. They were quiet and calm. So Alolupthvam essentially means, whatever be the sense objects around me, the sense organs should not get dragged or tempted by them. So keeping the sense organs calm and controlled, that is called as Alolupthvam. The sense organs should not determine how I behave. I should be in a control. I should be letting the sense organs know how it should actually act. So this is Alolupthvam. It is the same as Damaha. So we will not go into detail. We have already covered that. Alolupthvam. That was 17. The next value is Maardavam. Maardavam means softness, gentleness. In Tamil we say mridu. Mridu, or Sanskritam also we say mriduvana. Mridu. Mridu means softness, from where Maardavam has come in. Maardavam means soft nature. And what should be soft? Our words. Our words should be polite. And it should be polite at all times. Even if there is a need for us to give any punishment to anybody, we will have to treat them gently. The words should be polite, they should be measured. Our attitude should be soft, it should be calm natured. As I said, if there is a need to give punishment, punishment should be in line with the mistake made and not more than what is required. But the nature of the person should not be harsh. It should be calm, measured and polite. So when we say Maardavam here, being polite, it means what? Not using abusive words, not criticizing people, not blaming them. General tendency for us is to blame others. So not blaming, not denigrating, or sometimes for fun, some people belittle the other persons, not belittling person, not maligning the person, even without any kind of proof, or just for the sake of it. Some people will actually call others that they are bad. So vilify people, saying why they behave this way. Maardavam is being the opposite of all these things. So Maardavam is basically gentle nature, softness, politeness in words. For us to be able to follow Maardavam, or for us to be able to inculcate Maardavam, we need other values. First and foremost, we need is titiksha, patience. Because only if there is patience, we will be able to be soft natured. Otherwise, if we are short tempered, then it immediately comes out as harsh words. So we need to build titiksha. And then we need to have daya, because only a mind which has got compassion, it will be able to evoke soft, gentle, polite words. So we need to have daya, we need to have titiksha, we need to build vak tapas. So measuring words means vak tapas. So unnecessarily, if we are not talking unnecessarily, that itself will relieve us from lot of these problems. So vak tapas. So it is not just our words, it is our attitude, our personality in nature. By nature we should be calm, we should be polite, it should be in our body language as well. So that is Maardavam. So words, attitude should be soft natured, Maardavam. So that is 18. Then the next value, Maardavam Hrihi Achaapalam. Hrihi. Hrihi. Hrihi is opposite of Dambha. Opposite of Dambam is basically, you can say, humility. In Tamil we say Panivu. The actual word for humility is basically what we say Vinaya. Vinaya. So the dictionary meaning of Hrihi, actual meaning of Hrihi, if we look at it from the actual meaning of Hrihi, is basically shyness. Shy. We say in Tamil we say Kucham, Nanam we say, or we say Sankocham. Hrihi means Sankocham. But Bhagavan says, why Bhagavan says we need to feel shy? You know, some people, they don't feel ashamed to, seek help or money from others. They take it as if it's their right. So, but sensitive people are not like that. So there are some people who, when they go out, when you go out for eating out or meeting somebody, they will say, let the other person spend. Why should I spend? And typically what happens, they will also, as if, when the time for paying the bill comes, they will make it look as if they are taking out the wallet, but actually they wouldn't want to pay. And they would probably keep searching for the wallet until the other person pays for it. And there are people who will also, keep track of, this guy, I have spent so much for him, he has not spent so much for me, all these things. Bhagavan says these are all exhibits of shamelessness. These are all shamelessness. Similarly, asking for kind of, in marriages, asking for dowry, that's also an act of shamelessness. And they do it because they don't have, it is not that they don't have money. It is not about they not having money. It is because they simply don't have any shame in them. So that's how Bhagavan calls that. And one Sampradaya Guru for Hrihi, he actually mentions this as the definition. He says, Akarya karane chittasya sankochaha. Akarya karane. When something that shouldn't be done is being done, at that point of time, we should have this feeling of a guilt or a shame. But these persons, if you don't have that sankocha, if you have that sankocha, then that mind is called as Hrihi. When you are doing something that you should not be doing, and at that point of time a shame comes through you, then it is called as Hrihi. And we should have this feeling, especially when we are receiving help from others, money or whatever be the help. We should have that sankocha. Or another meaning, as I said initially, is humility, modesty, being simple, you can say. And where do we need to be modest and shy? Even in terms of dressing. Yeah. Even in terms of dressing, we should be modest. We should be a little more, conscious of what we're doing. Some people overdress, wearing a lot of ornaments, and others multiple rings even in one finger and all those things. And while speaking, they will try to show off that they have so many rings in their finger, show off their latest watch, whatever. All these are all shameful acts. Bhagavan says, have Hrihi. Basically, what we can say is not showing off or feeling embarrassed when receiving is called as Hrihi. So this is value number 19. Then the next value is Achaapalam. Achaapalam means not doing unwanted or useless things. We can say Vrata Cheshta Varjanam. Varjanam means giving up. Varjanam means give up, abandon, quit. Varjanam. Cheshta means action. What kind of action has to be given up? Vrata, meaning useless actions, vain actions. Useless here means unnecessary actions. Some people have this habit of unnecessary movement of their legs or hands, or sometimes even their mouth. All these karmendriyas, Vak, Pani, Padam, whatever, all these karmendriyas, unnecessary movement. Bhagavan says, do not have this. No, don't do that. Some people have this habit of shaking their legs when they are sitting in. Typically, they keep shaking their legs. Or some people, when they sit for any meeting or anything, they start scribbling on their paper, something or other. They just keep scribbling. Or some people might, have this habit of, tearing papers, small paper. They will try to tear it to bits and bits and bits. Or some people just keep talking. So these are all Achaapalam. And talk means what? I mean, not that it's important. They just want to go on. It's kind of loose talk. They want to keep talking, and for that they will find out whatever be the subject and then keep talking about without any need. It's all loose talk. Talk for the sake of talking. So all these are called as Achaapalam. And why do people do this? Mostly it starts out as fun. All these things, it starts out at fun. Nothing sinister about it. But then soon it becomes a habit. And it becomes a habit that people start doing that with these actions without their awareness. It comes more out of habit than out of any awareness. So not doing these unwanted gestures and actions is called as Achaapalam. In other words, no part of our body should move without our consent, without our approval. No part should move without our permission. And question is then, why should I stop doing these things? What is wrong? After all, it may be useless, but there is nothing wrong. What is wrong in doing this? So what Shastra says is, this habit will lead to pramadaha. Pramadaha means carelessness, negligence. And negligence can be very dangerous, can be even fatal. So suppose people are working in a high voltage area where there are some issues around, there are things around you. At that point of time, if we start doing some unwanted gestures, it might lead to accidents. So the habit of moving our hands or legs without our consent can happen anytime, anywhere. So we need to be careful and alert. The other thing, the more spiritual reason is, if you are looking for, if you are sitting for dhyana, meditation, the first step is for us to make the body calm, quiet, and a slave of our mind first. Then the mind has to be quieted. So having a motionless state is the first step of dhyana. So while sitting within dhyana, the eyeball should not be rolling, our hands and legs should not be shaking. Sitting quiet for 15 minutes is very difficult. And at that point of time, the body should basically obey or should not do anything of its own. It should be controlled by us. So when we talk about dhyana payirchi or dhyana, meditation practices, the first step is not to actually, we'll not go to the step of actually concentration meditation immediately. The first and foremost will be, for the first few days, for few weeks could be, is to sit quietly without moving our limbs, without moving our body. That will be the first step. Sit motionless for 15 minutes daily. Because only then what will happen is, only when we sit there, we will start feeling, itches on our nose and the back of our back, or we will feel as if there is an insect crawling. All these things, all these mental projections will also happen at that point of time. To overcome that, first we'll have to practice sitting motionless for 15 days, for 15 minutes, for few days at least. So this Achaapalam is important. It is not that it is impossible to do. We will be doing it, we are doing it. For example, if we are actually, suppose if we are, have a passion for watching cricket, or if we are actually watching our favorite show or a favorite movie, we will be sitting in the same place without scratching, without the need for any water or food. We will be able to sit motionless in the same place for hours together. So it is possible. Only thing, we need to have our passion. So this is important from a dhyana standpoint. Physically also, if we start moving certain parts of the body unnecessarily, it will lead to issues soon in the physical body also. From a spiritual standpoint, it is important from a dhyana. So Bhagavan says, be alert, conscious at all times, do not move, do not gesticulate unnecessarily. So this is the last value for this sloka. Achaapalam. So with this we have completed sloka number 2. Ahimsa, Satyam, Akrodha, Tyagah, Shantihi, Apaishunam, Daya Bhuteshu, Alolupthvam, Maardavam, Hrihi, Achaapalam. So we have covered totally 20 values in these 2 slokas. Now we will go to the sloka number 3. Tejah Kshama Dhriti Shaucham Adroho Nati Manita Bhavanti Sampadam Daivim Abhijatasya Bharata Tejah Kshama Dhriti Shaucham Adroho Nati Manita Bhavanti Sampadam Daivim Abhijatasya Bharata. So this is the last sloka where Bhagavan is covering Daivi Sampat. So far we had covered 20 values. In this sloka, Bhagavan is covering 6 more values. Total of 26 Daivi Sampat. Remember, we had already covered 20 values in chapter 13. So 20 plus 26, but of course there are a lot of overlaps between these values. Here Bhagavan starts with Tejaha. Tejaha means, Tejaha we know light. In this case, we should say skills, brilliance, smartness. Tejaha means smartness. And here Shankaracharya mentions, when we say Tejaha, it does not mean the brightness of the body or the skin that is mentioned. Here the mention is about the brightness of the mind and intellect. When we say Tejaha, it's not the physical but the internal, the intellect and the mind should shine. Generally, if we see people in Tamoguna, the mind will be dull, the intellect will be dull. The opposite of that is Tejaha Rajoguna. In this case, what happens is the Rajoguna will be backed by Sattva. So, this Tejaha should have that backing of Rajas. The Sattva backed Rajas is what is required here. In our life, what happens is some places it requires us to act quickly, instantly. So we'll have to be quite fast in our thinking and action in some places. And in some places, we will have to act patiently, we'll have to act cautiously. So life throws up both kinds of situations. In some places, we'll have to be very quick thinking, we'll have to act immediately. In some places, we have to deliberately slow down, act patiently, cautiously. And so in some places, we'll have to immediately act. And in some places, we'll have to think deeply before we act. Life throws up both. But in some cases, as I said, there will be certain definitely cases where we will have to act immediately. At that point of time, we will not have the opportunity or basically the time to actually look through or think deeply and decide on the course of action. We will not have time to actually go through the horoscope, whether it is a good time to act or nothing like that. When the situation requires quick action, at that time we should be able to take quick decisions. And because it requires immediate action, quick thinking, immediate action. Quick thinking is supported by Sattva Guna. Immediate action is to be supported by Rajoguna. So we need both, a Sattva backed by Rajoguna. Because it needs to be the right action, we need Sattva Guna to support it. Because it needs to be having the immediate action, it has to be supported by Rajoguna. Remember, this should not be confused with some people who act impulsively. Some people act impulsively on every issue. The moment an issue is said to them, they will immediately pass judgments. They will immediately act on it. They will not even think. The intellect, our mind and intellect should be mature enough to know for which of these situations we need to act immediately, we need to think fast, and which of these situations we need to let it rest for some time, think deeply, slowly, and then act. But there will be situations where it requires a quick understanding of the situation, a quick, immediate judgment, and because it has to be quick and immediate, the action has to be, the judgment and the action has to be right. And for the judgment and action has to be right, we need to have a heightened Sattva Guna. Otherwise, a Rajo Guna backed by Tamas will also provide immediate action, but it will not be the right action. It need not be the right action. And once the mind makes up the action, or once mind makes the judgment, the intellect will have to ensure that the action is immediately executed without any delay. this is needed even for our worldly matters. As I said when we started this, these values, whatever we are talking, are not only relevant for spiritual life. Even for worldly matters, all these values are relevant. For anybody to be successful, we can list out all these 26 values and say, if you do this, you will be successful in your career, in your profession, in your life. We can easily build that same. But the main benefit for us when we are studying now is mainly for spiritual benefit. So there, even for worldly matters, we need to have this ability to identify situations which require immediate attention and then take action accordingly. So not delaying taking decision and not delaying implementing the decision is teja. Fastness, light, we can say. The quickness must be more both at the mind level as well as at the body level. The body should also cooperate. Sometimes the mind might be able to take the decision, the body may not cooperate. Or the body is ready to take action, but the mind is not able to decide on the action. So our mind should also be sharp, our body should also be fit. Another meaning for the same word teja by other sampradaya gurus, they give this meaning of being resolute, being firm, being unwavering in our decision. For the same word teja, they say unwavering in our decision, being resolute. So how do we have to understand that? Not changing, the decision arbitrarily. So we have taken the decision, after a few minutes we say, no, I probably would want to go back to that original decision. Then I go back. This back and forth or changing the decisions is not considered correct, is not considered right, which means our mind is not able to make up what is right, what is wrong. Of course, when we get new data, our mind and intellect should be good enough to understand and then change our decision if required based on the new data. Then it is not called wavering minds. At that point of time, we are just being flexible because there is new information that has come through. So tejaha means acting properly on our responsibility, we can say. Acting properly on our responsibility without the influence of any tamo guna. The important thing is sattva and rajo should be on the forefront. Tamo should not be on the forefront. So that is called as tejaha. Now the next virtue, Bhagavan talks, virtue number 22. Kshama. Kshama, we have seen this earlier in chapter 13 itself. We have seen this kshama as kshantihi. Kshantihi, not shantihi, kshantihi. Kshantihi, we saw that. And kshantihi had two meanings basically. Kshama and titiksha we saw. See here Bhagavan is mentioning kshama. And kshama means patience, forgiveness. Two meanings, forgiveness and patience. And remember, kshama we have also dealt a little bit in detail when we discussed akrodha. When we discussed not getting angry, there also we discussed kshama. We saw akshama as one of the reasons for getting angry, out of the 8 reasons that we discussed for krodha. So here Bhagavan says kshama. So we'll be discussing briefly here. Kshama means the cause for many failures in our life. Many a times, if we reflect properly, if we analyze properly on all the failures that we have had in our life, most of the time, and if we are being fair to everyone, as in people around, and also being brutally honest about where we had gone wrong, if we reflect on that, we would see most of the failures are because of impatience. Sometimes when we are not able to come up in our life the way we want, in the manner we want, to the level we want, it is easy for us and it is quite natural for many of us to blame others or blame the situation, blame everybody around us, even blame Bhagavan for that. But if we really see many of the cases, the reason could be that we would have been impatient. If somebody wants to dig a well and say he actually digs for 48 feet, he goes in for 48 feet and then he still finds that there is no water, gives up because there is no water. Maybe the water was only about 2 or 3 feet down. Maybe at 50 feet there is water, 53 feet there is water. But what happened? He had given up, and he thus by doing that impatience had made the entire effort of 48 feet digging go waste. In life, many things do not come easily, do not come immediately. Just because it has come easily or immediately for somebody else, it does not mean it should come for us. For that matter, just because it has come to us something easily once, it does not mean it has to come immediately every time. We'll have to remember that there are a lot of forces in action. It is not just our effort. Our effort is important, no doubt, but there are a lot of other forces as well. So it is important to be patient. And how can we get patience? Only way is to practice. Practice being patient. It seems funny, but how do we learn cycling? How do we learn cycling? By practicing cycling. How do we learn swimming? By getting into the swimming pool and then practicing swimming. So how do we practice patience? How do we get patience? By practicing patience. This theoretical knowledge that I will be patient is as good as having some theoretical knowledge on, say, swimming. It is not going to help when you are in the water. In the same way, for patience, we'll have to practice it. So that is Kshama. Another meaning for Kshama we discussed was forgiveness. Patience and forgiveness. In life, there would be many people who would create problems for us, either knowingly or unknowingly. We would want to attribute it to all because they had done it on purpose. That is how we would like to tell ourselves, or the mind will tell us, depending on our basically vasanas or our samskaras. But when people do create problems for us, we should be in a position to forgive them. Again, this forgiveness should not be confused with giving punishment. If the situation demands, and if your position demands that you should have to punish that person. Suppose I am a judge. I feel this person has done a mistake, is willing to repent. But as a judge, there is a need for me to give punishment. It doesn't mean it is not about vengeance. It is not about carrying vengeance or anything. It is about doing the right thing. So a position demands, or it could be a boss in the office, it could be a parent for a children, whatever it is. If the situation demands, if our position demands, then we will have to punish. However, in the deep of our hearts, our attitude should be that we are able to carry forgiveness. We are in a position to forgive the other person. How do we show them? Do we need to show the other person that I have forgiven you? That is not important. We are not talking about we have to let the other person know that I have forgiven you. It could be a sadhana, because we are not able to forgive them. So it could be a sadhana, it could be used as a sadhana at times to say, go to that person and say, I have forgiven you, as a means for us to actually forgive the person. But if we have forgiven the person, we need not go and exhibit that. We can have it in our mind internally that I have forgiven that person. Because again, as I said, if you forgive someone, the real beneficiary, the biggest beneficiary, the first beneficiary is ourselves, is me. I don't do any greater benefit for the other person by forgiving the other person. Not any greater than what I do for myself. First and foremost, it removes dvesham from me. It removes hatred from me. It removes that anger in me. It removes all of the other bad qualities in that, that himsa in me. So forgiveness is important. Some people, as I said, they will feel that if I forgive that other person, he or she goes scot-free. We get this feeling that this person has gone, without repenting for the mistake, or basically because they have done something bad, they have not got anything back in return. They have been able to go scot-free without undergoing any kind of punishment. We need not worry about that. We need not worry that they have gone scot-free, they have not actually repented, they have not been punished for whatever they had done. We need not worry about this, because whether we want or not, whether it is, karma will work. Karma will take over. We can be assured on that. In fact, whatever we are going through today, because this person is actually, we say this person has actually created problems for me in the first place. I have not done anything wrong to this person. First of all, if we are actually spiritually mature enough to understand, we will be able to understand that what we are getting today is the result of our karma, our actions that had been done either in this life or in previous lives. So I don't need to feel bad about it. In fact, I can feel good about it, because I'm able to, exhaust one papa. I have done some papa, I've got something back in return. I'm able to exhaust that papa. Good. So, if the other person does me some harm, the other person is creating problems for me, the attitude that I should have is basically, okay, his karma will take over, or her karma will take over. We can be assured on that. Whereas, to the extent we have dvesham on somebody, to that extent, the more dvesham we have, the more anger we have, the more impatience we have, the more himsa we do, the more we are distancing away from Bhagavan. We can feel that. At that point of time, we don't want to take the help of Bhagavan. We don't want to talk about Ishvara. We don't want to think about anything good. We might know so many slokas by heart. At that point of time, nothing will come to our mind. Our Ishta Devata will not come to our mind. The more dvesham, the more all these negative qualities we have in our mind, the more we will be removed from Bhagavan, the more we will be going away from Bhagavan. Bhagavan and dvesham will not go together. You cannot say I am a big bhaktiman and at the same time I have so much of hatred with so many people. It's not possible. So dvesham has to go. For that, forgiveness is important. And how can we forgive? two things. Of course, as I said, spiritually mature, you will be able to understand that the other person is an instrument. Whatever you are supposed to get, you are getting it. The other person has just been an instrument. I will just make sure that, okay, I have exhausted my karma. That is one way to look at it. But if you are not spiritually mature enough to have that kind of, or if the harm that the other person has done so much that you are not able to think in those lines, then the first thing what we can do is attribute their action to ignorance. Attribute their action to ignorance. When we are able to see that that's the ignorance of the person has created this problem. Their ignorance about what is right and wrong. Their ignorance about karma. And that ignorance has made them act, or their because they would, many a times, if we really look at it, most of the times anything harm or anything bad to come to us, if we really look at it, the other person would not have done that with the aim to create problems for us. It just would have been their normal course of action, and we would have been hurt by that. Maybe because our minds are sensitive, whatever, or maybe we don't like that person and we try to find fault. It could be anything. So the first and foremost, we try to attribute it to ignorance. Their ignorance has been their cause for making them act this way. So this is the first way we can tell ourselves to be able to forgive them. The second thing we can say is we can attribute it to their inability. We can say, sometimes you might argue that the other person has not done out of ignorance. They knew it very well. They did it on purpose. She did it on purpose. I am very sure about it. Okay, then in that case, attribute it to their inability to do the right thing. It is their helplessness. Helplessness means they do not have that knowledge. They are not spiritually mature enough to understand what they have to do. Because their knowledge, their intellect is not helping them to deal with us properly. So, ignorance or inability. In Tamil we say ariyamai or iyalamai. Ariyamai or iyalamai. Ignorance or inability. And inability is equal to ignorance only. Because when there is knowledge and I am unable to use it, I am as good as ignorant. The inability is the same as ignorance. If I know I should not do something, but at the moment I am actually unable to do that, or I am unable to stop myself from doing it, it is as good as ignorance only. So one is ignorance, the other one is to make them its inability. The third thing for us to actually inculcate is basically daya. Compassion. So when we have compassion, we will be able to forgive people. We saw it. Last class we saw. Fourth, acceptance. As I said, the acceptance is I'm supposed to get this, I'm getting it. For a spiritually mature person, it is possible. If we are not spiritually mature enough to accept it, and at the same time we are slightly better than actually having this hatred, then we could use the other option which is called as Ishvara Prasada. We can say whatever sorrow I'm getting, whatever difficult situation I'm getting, whatever problems I'm getting, it is all given by Ishvara to make me grow spiritually. If I'm able to have that attitude, and this is the truth, because every sorrowful situation that Bhagavan gives us is for us to realize that we are in samsara. But we fail to realize. We don't want to acknowledge that we are in samsara. But actually that is the truth, that if we have this attitude, then we will be thinking like, who had troubled us? That's not a problem. They are just the instruments. Bhagavan is giving me this prasada so that I understand I have to grow spiritually. I will have to go through this sorrow. I will have to go through this pain. Because if you need accelerators for your spiritual growth, there cannot be anything better than sorrow or pain. Sorrow, painful situations, sorrowful situations are the best accelerators. If we are having a joyous life, if we are in comfort, at that point of time we wouldn't want to think of Bhagavan, we wouldn't want to think of Ishvara, we wouldn't want to think of prayer, we wouldn't want to think of any vrata, we wouldn't want to think of finding the truth, because we would be enjoying the life or the comfort at that point of time. So this spiritual growth, this Ishvara Prasada is important. We'll have to take it as Ishvara Prasada. So we don't need to hate anyone. They are just instruments. Bhagavan is using them as an instrument to help me grow spiritually. So this is how we should see it. This is Shama. So we have covered 2 values in this. The remaining 4 values we will try to cover in the next class. And the next class is Dhritihi. We will try to see it in the next class. Next class is 2nd of October. We have Chandi Homam. I will let you know whether we will have class on that day or not. I'll update you in the WhatsApp. Any questions or comments?
Sir,
Yes.
sir, if you want to attain spiritual awareness, even while we are living a joyous life, what should we do?
Have some dedicated time for prayer. Have some dedicated times for vrata. Make sure that Ishvara is part of our life. Make sure that you take everything as a blessing of Ishvara. Make sure that the joyous life is not being get that attitude that this is not given, is not out of your own action that you have got it. It is because of Ishvara's prasada that you have been able to enjoy it. Don't take all the joyous things as for granted. So with that attitude, we'll be able to spiritually progress even when we are in joyous life.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. If there are no more questions, then we'll see in the next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Swasti Prajabhya Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahimmaishaha. Gobrahmanebhyo Shubhamastu Nityam Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah.
Thank you, sir.